Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you see this little thing down here, this is my microphone. I'm trying to make the audio good in this video because the audio has just been lacking in my sit down videos. I used to use this tiny microphone on the side of my camera and I don't know what's happened to it. It's just not working properly. So please ignore the microphone. I'm trying to keep it as low as possible. I thought it was about time that I did a full sit down video talking about my recent weight loss because it's something that I get questions about every single day of my life, and I feel like I need to kind of clear up exactly what happened, why I have lost so much weight, how it happened, and just let you know exactly what has been going on in my life over the past year. I feel like it's important to inform you about that. I do just want to say this video is going to have obviously the topic of weight loss, surgery, blood, hospitalization, all of those things in it. And if any of those things trigger you, please don't watch this video. I would so much rather you take a step back to protect your mental health rather than give me a view. Honestly, I feel like in situations like this, it is so important to put your mental health first. And if you know that you get triggered by any of these things, it is totally okay to skip this video. I would honestly prefer that. But before we jump into exactly why and how I've lost weight, we need to go right back to the beginning of this story, which starts in August 2022. If you've watched any of my videos over the past few months, you will have probably heard me touch on some of the parts in this story, but I just wanted a video of itself where I can direct people to whenever they ask me how I've lost weight to just give the entire story and not just parts of it. So starting in August 2022, I had a couple of weeks where I just felt really weird within myself. I felt super anxious, but I couldn't put a finger on why. It wasn't like the type of anxiety I've experienced before. I just felt like something's not right within me, but I don't know what. And not only was I feeling super anxious and weird within myself, but I was also really tired. So my mum persuaded me to take a week, go back to Sheffield where she lives, and just spend a week there to kind of decompress, chill a little bit, and see if that helped my mood at all. And I honestly had the nicest couple of days in Sheffield. It was starting really well. I saw my brother and his girlfriend, which was so nice. I don't often get to see them because they live so far away from me. So yeah, this trip was starting off very nicely. I think the day before this happened, I actually went out for Indian food with a bunch of friends as well. My mood was cheering up, but I still didn't feel right in myself. But the next day we decided we would go shopping. I wanted to have a look in TK Maxx, Home Sense, all of the good like home shops that they have in Sheffield that they don't really have big ones of in Brighton. So mum and I made our way to a big Home Sense. It was actually quite a far drive away, and I remember feeling really guilty about this because as soon as we got there, I just felt so strange. I think we went for a drink and then I had to head straight back to the car. And I don't know how this has anything to do with what happened, but I felt like all of my clothes were too tight. I was in leggings. They were quite baggy leggings. They weren't like super tight or anything, and I wore them after that with no issues. But that day, I just remember thinking, I need to get these off my body right now. Anything touching my skin was like making me feel claustrophobic. I went back to the car and I just said to my mum, I really don't feel right, and I don't know why, but something's not right with me. I need to get these trousers off. So we ended up heading to a shop for me to buy some different trousers to see if that helped. And at this time I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, I've never had this before. I've never felt like I've needed to get out of my clothes so badly that I've actually had to go and buy different ones to wear. But while we were in the process of buying me some different trousers to put on to see if that helped at all, there were some stairs that I had to walk up in the shopping centre, and I felt so dizzy. And by the top of them, I was like sweating. It wasn't even hot at all, but I was sweating. I felt so dizzy. I remember just leaning against the wall for a second and being like, God, I do not feel right. And I just kind of thought it was anxiety. But at the same time, it wasn't like anxiety that I'd ever felt before. It was bizarre. My whole body just felt strange. Anyways, my mum saw how I was. She saw me leant against the bloody wall and was like, let's just go home. Sit on the sofa with your cats and see if you feel any better tomorrow, and we can come tomorrow. So I was like, okay. But as soon as we got home, I went straight to bed. I think it was only 12 p.m, but I stepped foot in the door. I just remember saying to my mum, I need to go to bed. I don't feel good. So I went to bed and I thought I was going to wake up absolutely fine, but that isn't what happened. When I woke up that day, I couldn't feel my arms and legs. And I remember just waking up and being like, oh my God, something is wrong with me right now. I can't feel my arms and legs and I feel like I'm going to pass out any second. So I tried to stand up out of bed, but I couldn't stand on my legs. So I ended up just kind of knelt there by my bed, going in and out of consciousness, like with my head rested on my bed. And in the conscious moments, I tried to phone my mom. I tried to phone her so many times, but she had actually fallen asleep on the sofa downstairs, so she wasn't picking up her phone. But all I wanted to do was contact her and just tell her something is wrong with me right now. I can't feel my arms and legs. I can't stand up to walk. I can't do anything. I'm like in and out of consciousness. I think we figured out that I was in that state for about 20 minutes before I ended up crawling my way to the top of the stairs, and I was just shouting mum with all of my might. But honestly, I must have been like, mum. But I thought I was yelling it. I really wasn't. So while I was at the top of the stairs trying to shout for my mum, I vaguely remember passing out again and waking up again and just thinking, if I don't get help right now, something is going to happen to me. And I don't know how, but you always hear in those moments when people are going through something like medical, they get weird strength, like adrenaline strength out of nowhere. So I managed to stand up and I ran downstairs, in my opinion. Might not have even been running, but to me, I ran down those stairs. And I was still shouting for my mum at the same time, and she'd actually woken up by this point and was kind of like, what the hell is going on? Anyways, I met her at the bottom of the stairs, and then as soon as I saw her, I slid down the wall and passed out. And I woke up to paramedics looking down on me, which obviously freaked me out. First of all, why were they there staring at me? Secondly, I still couldn't feel my arms and my legs, and it had got to a point where I couldn't feel my lips either. All of the stats that the ambulance team did on me were not looking good, so they decided to rush me to the hospital. So I went straight into a room in the hospital where they did blood tests on me straight away, which revealed that I had basically lost half of the blood in my body, but I didn't have an outward bleed. There was no blood coming from me anywhere. I spent a week in hospital and I had a bunch of tests done. I think I had an external ultrasound and an internal ultrasound. I had loads of blood tests to check that my vitals were going back up. My hemoglobin had dropped significantly, so their task was basically to bring that up and make sure that I was doing okay enough to be able to stand and walk and things like that. So in that hospital stay, I think I had 3 blood transfusions to get more blood into my body, get me healthy again, but the doctors still couldn't figure out where the blood loss had come from, because those ultrasound tests were absolutely fine. Nothing showed on those. And during that week with the transfusions and everything, I'd got to a point where they were happy to discharge me, but they actually booked an endoscopy. Now, an endoscopy, I will put a picture of what it is on screen. It's basically this tube that they put through your mouth into your stomach, and it's got a camera on the end so they can see any issues along that kind of pipe. The only availability that they had for that was around 10 days after I was first admitted to hospital, so a couple of days after I got discharged, but by that time it had been 10 days. And one of the main parts of this is after I was discharged and went home, I pooped for the first time since this incident happened, and it was black with blood and blood clots and blood in the water. And I basically had passed something called melena, which confirmed that I had had an internal bleed, but they still didn't know where the bleed came from. So that is what the endoscopy was for. Now, when I went to that endoscopy, they found nothing. So it was kind of like a mystery as to what on earth had happened to me at that point. However, my vitals were going up. I was beginning to be finding myself again. So doctors kind of just left it at that, as like, something happened. We don't know what. We tried to do the tests, but we haven't seen anything. So it is what it is. This is when the weight loss comes into the story. So this is when the difficulty with eating started. So that happened at the end of August, and now we're talking like late September, early October. I started to not be able to eat, and by that I literally meant I couldn't eat, could not keep a meal down for the life of me. Whenever I ate more than a tablespoonful of food, it made me sick. I couldn't eat meat. I couldn't eat anything with any sort of texture that didn't go to mush or didn't melt. But at the time, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together and think it might have been caused by what had happened to me. I just thought, oh, maybe my appetite's gone. This is really strange. I don't really understand it, but it just is what it is, and it'll probably come back. Anyways, Christmas came and went, and I was fine apart from not really being able to eat much. But then came January. I'm gonna have a sip of tea. That tea is the perfect temperature. So January came. This is bleed part 2. I again felt really strange the day and the day before this bleed happened, but I couldn't put my finger on why. I was having that anxious feeling again, but I had quite a lot going on in my life at that point as well, and I was just thinking, know, I'm probably just anxious. But I also had a tummy ache, which I didn't have the time before. So no part of me thought like, this is a bleed again. So I just went on with my life for a couple of days until the tummy pain got worse and I started vomiting blood. I've never had this happen before, and it was terrifying just looking down into a bowl and seeing blood. And I'm not talking a tiny amount. I'm talking, say you had a mixing bowl like this level full of blood. I just kept throwing up and throwing up to the point where I actually lost my eyesight. And I was on FaceTime to Cam at this time, and I just remember saying to her, my eyesight's going, I can't see, I can't read anything on my computer screen, because I was also editing at the time and like reading things on my computer. It just went blurry and then started going black. And that was the scariest point for me, because my nan actually went blind, and that is one of my biggest fears in life, is to go through the same thing that she went through with that. It pretty much happened to her overnight, and that's all I was thinking. I was like, oh, that's what's happening to me right now. At the same time, I was throwing up more blood, and I ended up being rushed to intensive care, where they actually put me to sleep to stop me from throwing up more blood, because it was just coming out and coming out. It wasn't stopping. And while I was in there, they did an emergency endoscopy straight away. So the last one I had was 10 days later. This one was immediate. And while they did that endoscopy, they ended up finding an ulcer in my stomach. If you don't want to see it, look away, but I might put the video on screen right now, just in case you want to know what an ulcer looks like. I had no idea. Obviously, like, you get mouth ulcers sometimes, but I didn't know what an actual stomach ulcer looked like. Here it is. Looks very weird, but this is after it had stopped bleeding. So now we knew what the problem was, and we can basically assume that I had a stomach ulcer the last time as well, but it had healed by the time I had the endoscopy. Obviously, we'll never know that, but it just seems like that is probably the case with it happening a second time. I was in hospital for 10 days. I ended up having, I think, 6 blood transfusions and plasma. Still don't know what plasma is. When I edit this video, Gabby, look what plasma is. And I was actually prescribed omeprazole, which is basically an acid reducer, because it was suspected that the way that the ulcer had formed was because there was too much acid in my stomach. And touch wood, this medication has helped me to this day. I have had a recent endoscopy, which I'll go to in a bit. No ulcer was found during that one, so fingers crossed this medication has saved the day and saved everything, really. So all that is well and good. I'm now on medication, recovering from this huge bleed that I had. Once again, had melena, which was awful. Don't wish that on my worst enemy. It absolutely stinks. By this point, I couldn't eat. Now, the way that I was eating before, I could have a spoonful of food like every hour, and that was kind of just how it was. But by this point, I just could not eat. Everything was making me sick, and it felt like all the food that I tried to eat was stuck here, and anytime I tried to eat, I would end up in loads of chest pain, because it just felt like the food was there and it wouldn't go down. So we needed to figure out what was going on with that, why I couldn't eat, why I was being sick so much, and why I was losing so much weight. At this point in time, I had lost, I'll put it on screen because I kept a note of it, so I'd lost that much weight since October. It was now probably end of Feb, March time. The only things that I could eat were biscuits, plain pasta, mashed potatoes, crisps, things that melted or that didn't take up much room. And I was having protein shakes every day as well, just to try and keep my protein intake up. But this weight loss and lack of eating got to a point where obviously it was incredibly concerning. My hair was falling out in clumps. Anytime I washed it, I would end up with clumps of hair in my hands. I was shattered all the time, sleeping like 12 hours a night and still needing to take naps in the day. I just didn't have any food in me to fuel me at all, and the weight fell off me so quickly. And I was trying to put on a brave face and still post videos and do my job, make my content, see friends, all of that stuff, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it's so hard to have a health problem and be going through something and not have an explanation when you have got trolls like I have who make an issue of everything. Because I didn't have an answer, they were jumping on that, creating the narrative that I'd made all of this up, which is insane to even think about. Like, I wish that I'd made this up and this wasn't a reality for me. It's been hell for the past year. But yeah, I was just putting on a brave face and acting like everything was absolutely fine while I got my answer. So I was booked in for a further endoscopy to check out my stomach. This was actually to check that the ulcer had healed. But while they did that endoscopy, they found that I had a stricture, which was basically a narrowing caused by the ulcer. So the ulcer had healed in a way that closed off my stomach, which is why no food could get down, and it felt like everything was sitting here. here. Effectively, it was. If you think of people who get keloid scarring, that's basically what happened on the inside of my stomach. The way the first ulcer had healed, it had closed it off a little bit with the scar tissue, but by the time the second ulcer had come, it had closed it off to a point where it was just impossible to eat anything proper. So I then had to have a procedure called an esophagal dilatation, where the endoscopy pipe is passed down with the camera to investigate, and then a balloon is inserted and inflated to try and widen the gap. And I was told that the gap was so tiny that they couldn't actually get the camera through at the start of the procedure, and the endoscopy pipe is so thin, it's tiny, and they couldn't get that through the stricture, which is wild to think about. Like, no wonder food wasn't going down. But by the end of the procedure, they could get it through just. And they basically said to me, the gap that you have is so tiny, we couldn't blow up the balloon more than we have in fear of perforation. So we've done what we can, but you might have to come back and have it done again, depending how it goes. Like, they couldn't do much, basically. But they got it to a point where they could fit the pipe down, so that's good. And I was okay-ish for a week. My appetite definitely came back, and I could eat more things, but I couldn't eat a proper meal, and I still couldn't eat meat. That was making me sick. But I could stomach more of the foods I had been eating, so more amount of pasta. But after a few days, it pretty much went back to how it was before, which sucked. And I'm so grateful for the NHS. They managed to book me in so soon for another esophageal dilatation. I had the first one. By the end of week 1, I knew that it was a no-go, and they booked me in already for a week later to have another, which I couldn't do, so I ended up having to wait another week after that. But yeah, super duper quick process, and I think that's because they knew how fast like my health was declining with this problem. But I'm so grateful, like so grateful. If you work for the NHS or in hospitals in general, thank you from the bottom of my heart, because along this journey, so many people I feel have saved my life and helped me in ways that I will be forever grateful for. So this is where the last stomach procedure that I've had comes into play. I had this a few days ago. You're actually going to see the vlog for it tomorrow. But I had another dilatation done. And again, I was told that they couldn't get the camera through the gap, but they could by the end of the procedure, which is good. However, my blood pressure dropped dramatically, so I had to be put on fluids and stay in the hospital for longer than I expected to have to, just to make sure that I was okay. But I've been absolutely wiped out since. If you think my last few vlogs have been not very good, I am so sorry. Like, I've been absolutely exhausted. I literally, like, I've had big surgeries before, and I feel like I've had a big surgery, even though I haven't. It was just a procedure, but I think it's all just catching up to me, and I'm so tired. I'm just trying to rebuild myself. But yeah, eating wise has been okay. Nothing has made me sick, which is amazing. I haven't been sick since I had the procedure done a few days ago, and I can seem to eat a little bit more, but it's still not to a point where I could sit and eat a meal. So basically the team said when I got out of that one that they weren't able to, you know, stretch it to a good amount again in fear of perforation. They just did what they could, and if this doesn't work, if this doesn't help me, they're going to have to talk to the consultant about what other options can be taken to keep my stomach open. But yeah, a few days in now, and it's okay. I don't know, it's really tricky. I'm just seeing how it goes. But that is effectively why I've lost so much weight. And the reason I wanted to make this video is just to show that you truly don't know what anyone is going through when it comes to their weight, if they lose weight, if they gain weight rapidly. I just want to say, please be careful around the topic of weight loss, because I've had so many comments, and I know that they come from such a lovely place. I know they do. I know they're not malicious at all, but I have had an insane amount of comments from people saying, I look glowing now I've lost weight. I look amazing. My weight loss has given me a new lease of life. I look so good. Just loads of comments about my appearance. And while I appreciate it, I really do, I have felt the shittest I have ever felt in my life. Living on spoonfuls of food a day and not being able to get work done. I've turned down so much work and so many opportunities because I physically did not have the energy over the last year to do it. And the juxtaposition of me pretty much being in terrible health while being told like how glowy I look and how amazing I look has been a wild ride to read. And like I said, I do appreciate it. I know no one's been malicious, but I do hope you maybe think twice before commenting so heavily on somebody's appearance in the future. Like, yes, you can say someone looks amazing, but don't bring their weight into it, because you really don't know what anyone's struggling with, whether that be medical conditions, whether that be an eating disorder. Comments like that can be very just tricky to deal with, and something that has been making me anxious while these stomach procedures have been coming up. Me just thinking, everyone thinks I look incredible now. What happens when they sort my stomach and I inevitably can eat again, which is gonna come with me putting weight on again, which is a normal thing that should happen if I can eat food again, obviously. But what's gonna happen? Like, are those comments gonna turn negative? And it's just been a battle in my mind that I've been having to try and process. If you're OG viewers of my channel, you will know how much I've struggled with weight loss. When I was 18, I had a gastric sleeve. It has been something that's been very prominent in my life, but to lose weight in this kind of a way is something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's been horrendous to try and keep my head above water and my life as normal as it can be. And to know that this still might not be the end of the journey sucks. I might have to have another dilatation and just keep going that route, or possible surgery to try and open the gap again. I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I hope that this has cleared up why I lost so much weight so quickly and all of the questions that you guys had surrounding that. But if you have any more questions, please do leave them below. I will be going through and answering as many as possible. But for now, I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching this video and for listening to me talk about my story for what feels like about an hour now. If you're at the end of this, thank you so much. I will have the day of the procedure vlog coming out tomorrow, and then from there on out it will just be normal vlogs for the remainder of November. If you're new to my channel, I am filming every day in November, so be sure to subscribe if you would like to. Let me know in the comments as well if you have any video suggestions. I really want to do like a Christmassy apartment tour. I've got a Q&A coming up, but yeah, any suggestions, let me know. I'm heading to Nashville in 9 days today, which is crazy, but I'm gonna head off now. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative. Remember to practice kindness and be kind to everybody around you, because you don't know what they're going through, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.